I'll tell you what I was worth, according to Chalk Run, in the spring of 1884. 40 cents a day and a sleeping spot in the lambing barn I shared with 3 ewes and a border collie named Pete. I was the hand they kept, because no one else could pull a breech lamb in the dark without losing the mother, and they were the outfit I worked for, because no other spread in the territory would have me. That arrangement had held for 4 years, since the morning Harlan's foreman, a man named Dobe Creel, told me I'd never amount to a fence post, and the afternoon I fixed 600 yards of that same fence, while Dobe watched from horseback. The county's verdict on me was settled. I was Clem Dre, the black sheep. No family, no standing, no last name anyone respected. My father had left enough of a reputation behind him that his name was a door that swung the wrong way. I did not drink. I did not gamble. I did not start trouble. None of it mattered. A man's name in a small territory is the shadow he walks in whether he cast it or not, and mine was long. I am telling you all this so you understand what Lenora Voss was warned about before she ever spoke 2 words to me. She had come to the land clerk's office in Chalk Run on a Thursday morning in April, and I happened to be there to file a grazing route correction Harlan had sent me to handle. The office was a single room behind the feed merchant, 2 desks, a map rail, and a smell of old paper and boot leather. I was waiting my turn when the door opened and a woman came in alone, carrying a document satchel and wearing the look of someone who had already spent more of the morning than she intended on this errand. She was not young in the way people mean when they say a woman is young to flatter her. She was a grown woman. I put her at 30, maybe a year either side, with steady eyes and the kind of posture you earn from 2 years of running a sheep claim without help. I learned later her husband Cole had died of a lung fever in the winter of 1882, leaving her 40 acres on the Burnt Willow Flat, a small flock, a garden, and a brother-in-law named Silas Voss who had been waiting, patient as a fence post rot, for the right moment to contest the claim. That moment, as it happened, was now. The territorial probate code had a provision, one of those provisions written by men who never considered that a woman might run land competently on her own, that a widow's contested claim required either a male co-signer of record or a husband to stand the filing within 60 days of contest. Silas had filed his contest 3 weeks prior. She had 37 days left. I learned all of this because Silas Voss was in the land office when she arrived. He was a broad man with a neck like a fence post, and the satisfaction of someone who had already decided how a thing was going to go. He said something to her, low enough that the clerk pretended not to hear, about how a woman running 40 acres alone was an embarrassment to Cole's memory, and how she ought to think carefully about whether she really wanted to put herself through a territorial hearing. She looked at him the way you look at a dog that has been stepping toward you slowly for a while, calm, measuring, and then she said, quietly, that she had thought carefully, and that she'd be at the hearing with her documents in order, and that he was welcome to bring whatever he liked. Silas smiled in the way men smile when they think they've already won. He left. She set her satchel on the counter and asked the clerk about her options. There weren't many. The clerk, a decent enough man named Arlo Peck, laid them out plainly. A co-signer was difficult on short notice and carried its own legal weight. A husband of record, filed before the hearing date, would make the contest moot under territorial statute. Silas would have no standing to claim a working married household's acreage, but that required, naturally, a husband. She did not say anything for a moment. Then she said she understood, thanked Arlo, and picked up her satchel. I followed her out. I do not know exactly why. I had my own errand, and Lenora Voss's trouble was not mine. But I had watched Silas Voss's smile, and something in me, the same part that had spent 4 years fixing fences while men on horseback told me I was no account, decided it had seen enough of that particular expression to last a lifetime. I caught up with her on the board sidewalk. I introduced myself. She knew the name Clem Dre the way everyone in the territory knew it, which was to say she knew the shadow more than the man. I know who you are, she said, not unkindly. Then you know I've got no reason to offer you a thing except that I watched what just happened in there, and I didn't care for it, I said. I'm not asking for anything in return. I can sign as co-signer if that helps. Or if a husband of record would close the matter entirely, I'll go to the clerk right now. You say the word. She studied me for a moment. The street was busy behind us. A freight wagon, 2 horses tied at the rail, A woman from the dry goods carrying a wrapped parcel. Nobody was paying us particular attention, but in Chalk Run that never lasted. "What would you expect from it?" she said. "Nothing," I said. "The claim stays yours. I'll work it or I won't, as you prefer. I'll sign what needs signing, and stay out of your way otherwise." "You're Harlan Fitch's lambing hand," she said. "I am. What does Harlan think about this?" "Harlan doesn't know, and I don't intend to tell him before it's done. He'll find a replacement. There's always someone who can pull a lamb." She looked at me a moment longer, then she said, "Come back in 3 days. If I decide to take you up on it, I'll be at the clerk's office Friday morning." I was there Friday morning, so was she. We filed the marriage record with Arlo Peck and 2 witnesses, a retired trail freighter named Bud Mace, and Arlo's own wife, who had come in to drop off his midday meal, and ended up signing a legal document instead. The whole business took 20 minutes. Silas Voss heard about it by sundown. His contest was withdrawn the following Monday. I moved my gear to the Burnt Willow claim on a Saturday. It amounted to a bedroll, a change of clothes, a good knife, and a coffee tin I'd owned since I was 22. Lenora showed me the lambing shed and the feed corner and the east gate that needed a new hinge pin, and then she went back to the house. I fixed the gate, and then I found 2 more things that needed doing, and I did those too. That was how it started. The terms were plain and unspoken, which is to say we each understood them without having to say them out loud. This was a practical arrangement. The claim was hers, the work was shared. The house had 2 rooms and I slept in the lean-to off the kitchen, which was fine. Lenora cooked twice a day, and I was grateful for it and said so. She was not a woman who needed to be told things twice or have them explained to her, which I respected the way you respect a well-built fence, quietly, and more than you say. I will not pretend there was no awkwardness. 2 strangers in close quarters on a working claim will find each other's edges first. The first week, she corrected the way I'd set the feed rotation, and she was right. The second week I mentioned the east paddock wall, and she said she knew. She'd been planning to bring stone down from the creek bed when the ground dried. There was a plan in her head for everything on that claim, quiet and thorough, executed alone for 2 years, with no one to talk it through with. I started asking instead of assuming. Things went easier. By May the flock was in good shape, the garden was in, and the claim looked like a working place again, in the way a place does when 2 sets of hands are on it instead of 1. I don't know when the awkwardness left. I know that by the time the first hot spell hit in June, I was comfortable enough to sit on the porch step after supper without it feeling like I was intruding, and she was comfortable enough to sit in the chair behind me with her mending and not feel like she had to make conversation. That kind of quiet is not nothing. That kind is something. She told me about Cole one evening. Not much, just enough. A good man, she said. Not loud about it, just steady. Sick for a long time before the end. She had kept the claim going through his last winter, because there was nothing else to do, and because it was theirs. After, it was just hers, and she had kept going for the same reason. I told her about my brother. I had not told anyone in Chalk Run about my brother, which was not a choice I made deliberately. It was just that nobody in Chalk Run had ever asked. His name was Orrin. He was 4 years younger, and he had followed me onto the Fitch spread when he was 19, and in the fall of 1880, he had gone into the high pasture alone to bring down a ewe that had fouled in the brush, and he had not come back. We found him the next morning. The cold had done it, and there was nothing to say about it that I hadn't already said to myself more times than I could count. I should have gone with him. I didn't. That was the plain truth of it, and I had been carrying it around Chalk Run for 4 years, like a stone in a coat pocket, heavy and familiar. Lenora listened without comment, which was the right thing. When I finished, she said, "He went to do a thing that needed doing. That's not a thing to be ashamed of." Such a plain sentence. I think about it still. The town did not warm to the arrangement quickly, which was its right. There were women who nodded at Lenora in a way that said they were reserving judgment, and men who looked at me the way men look at a hand who has somehow acquired a claim he wasn't supposed to have. Dobe Creel said something to somebody that got back to me about a man marrying his way into 40 acres, and I let it go by, because Dobe Creel's opinion had never fed me or sheltered me, and I saw no reason to start caring about it now. What changed the town? Not all at once, but the way a bank of cloud thins and the light comes through was the plain, ordinary fact of the work. A claim that has worked well shows it. By August, the burnt willow place looked better than it had in 2 years, the flock count was up, and Lenora had a cord of firewood stacked under the lean-to roof that would see them clear through the hardest winter the territory could produce. Nobody could say Clem Dre hadn't worked for it. Some of them tried anyway, and after a while they stopped, because the evidence was right there and it didn't have a counter-argument. In September she asked me to stay, not in a dramatic way. We were at the supper table, and she said, "The 30-day filing period closed in July. You don't owe this place anything more." She looked at the table when she said it, and then she looked at me. "But I'd like you to stay if you're willing." I said I was willing. "For what reason?" she said. She was not being difficult. She wanted to know. "Because I haven't built anything since my brother died," I said. "And this is the first place in 4 years that's felt like something worth building." She nodded once, which was enough. We were married properly in October, not because the paperwork required it, since that was already done, but because she wanted the thing to mean what it meant. Arlo Peck filed the amended record. Bud Mace came again, and ate supper afterward, and said it was the best lamb stew he'd eaten since his wife had passed, which was the nicest thing anyone in Chalk Run had said to either of us in recent memory. Silas Voss moved east the following spring, and I did not hear about him again. The town's opinion shifted the way opinions do when a thing has been settled by evidence for long enough. Not with any announcement, just a gradual recognition that the verdict had been wrong and that everyone had more or less known it for a while and was moving on. Dobe Creel tipped his hat to Lenora on the main street one morning in November, and she nodded back, and that was the end of that chapter. I have been on the burnt willow claim for 11 years now. The flock is 3 times what it was. The east paddock wall is solid. The lean-to off the kitchen is a proper room, with a good door and a window that faces the morning light, and I built it myself from creek stone and timber I hauled down from the ridge. Every morning I am up before the sun, and every evening I sit on the porch step after supper, and Lenora sits in the chair behind me with whatever she has in her hands, and we don't always talk, and that is fine. The county called me a black sheep for 20 years. I won't argue with them, but I know what I built, and I know who I built it with, and I know that what Lenora Voss saw when she looked at me on that Friday morning in Arlo Peck's office, past the shadow, past the name, past everything Chalk Run had decided about me before I had a word in it, was something nobody else in the territory had thought to look for. That's worth more than any verdict a town ever handed down.